So yes, we are talking about God Only Knows. Instead of doing 2 tracks as usual, I started outlining for this, and the rabbit hole continued to get deeper and deeper, so I was like, you know what? I'm sorry, Big Sean, but we're just going to talk about this song. So we're only talking about For King and Country and their song God Only Knows. A little bit of background. They're a Christian pop duo consisting of brothers Joel and Luke Smallbone. They were both born in Sydney, but they eventually moved to Nashville when they were still kids. And their music career was kind of an interesting start. They were first backup singers for their sister, Rebecca St. James, who herself was a super successful CCM musician and even won a Grammy at the end of the 90s. And by the time these brothers, Joel and Luke, were in their 20s, they started self-releasing music under their first names. And then in 2009, they signed to Warner, changed their name to For King and Country, the name we see hitting the Hot 100 this week for the first time. This is the first time they've hit the Hot 100 in their entire career, again at number 94, but they've been building up to this milestone for the better part of the decade. While their debut album peaked only at number 128 on the Billboard 200 back in 2012, their most recent release, called Burn the Ships, actually cracked the top 10 last year, debuted at number 7 last October. Also, they won 2 Grammys in 2015. That album is where this week's Hot 100 debut comes from, and it's also where the story gets particularly interesting. So God Only Knows is the 5th song by For King and Country to top the Christian Airplay chart, but it's not topping that chart in tandem with its Hot 100 debut, like you might expect. This song isn't even on that Airplay chart anymore. Instead, I think its appearance on the Hot 100 is the result of a super long and super fascinating trail of remixes that have kind of periodically come out over the past months. But before I say any more, let's listen to the original version, which was released again last October. A very familiar timbral palette, let's say. Maybe Imagine Dragons, Caitlin?
I would go maybe a little bit more X-Ambassadors there. There are a couple brothers actually in X-Ambassadors, so brother bands, so fun. Wow.
Brother bands. Jonas Brothers better watch out, maybe? We'll see. But in June of this year, God Only Knows was remixed by Timbaland, which is weird.
What the hell?
And then, if listeners and Caitlin remember the song Cool Kids, wish that I could be like the cool kids.
Love that.
The band behind that song is Echo Smith, and they're also on this Timbaland remix. God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. 'Cause there's a kind of love that God only knows. There's a kind of love there's a kind of love. God only knows. There's a kind of love. So setting aside the fact that these names are kind of unexpected to crop up, at least from my perspective, I feel like this isn't a super radical remix. It definitely nudges the song closer to hip-hop, but it nudges it closer to hip-hop in a way that's very much in the vein of the trap pop you hear even more frequently on the radio than even the Imagine Dragons or X-Ambassadors timbres. Caitlin?
When I first started listening to that clip, I was like, oh my god, the little twinkly hi-hats, like, it's just like so trap, but it's so just like watered down. I don't know. It's kind of, to me, it's comical. I don't want it to be comical, but Timbaland, what are you doing?
And this is a tangent, but didn't we talk about Timbaland in the context of like a UK charity single with surgeons singing or something like that?
Yes. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, he's just doing whatever strikes his fancy.
Like,
he's at that point in his career.
Rails and then get back on them.
So there are plenty of other remixes of this track we could talk about, but the one I think finally pushed the song into the Hot 100 is the one that came out at the very end of last month. There was a video and everything. It was a whole big deal. And I'm going to play a longer clip for this remix, that way you get a better sense of the guests' contributions. So here's God Only Knows with the addition of the legendary Dolly Parton.
You keep a cover over every single secret, so afraid if someone saw them they would leave. But somebody sees you, somebody will never leave you.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. 'Cause there's a kind of love that God only knows.
There's a kind of love. There's a kind of love. There's a kind of love. There's a kind of love.
I talked about easy shortcuts when it comes to the Kinks, and it might be an easy shortcut to make me like a song by adding Dolly Parton to it, but it certainly helps a whole lot. She sounds really fantastic here. Her voice is both worn and also warm, which I think is a really good combination for lines like God only knows what you've been through. There's that weariness. It's really fantastic at embodying sort of the pathos of that line. But I think the remix also works in ways that go beyond just adding Dolly Parton to the mix. It strips away the sort of booming scale of the other two versions that we heard, add some acoustic guitar for a bit more intimacy, take out the super boomy bass and the pitch-shifted vocals, add a little tasteful shaker to the chorus. It feels like, among those three versions that we heard, it feels like the only version of the song that is actually kind of arranged and performed in keeping with the tone and message of the song. And because of that, I feel like it makes it clear that it's actually kind of well written. It's nothing amazing, but it gives me sort of an occasion to think about this song in connection with Lauren Daigle and her song You Say, which listeners are probably familiar with. We won't play a clip. Check it out on your own if you like. But as of this recording, that song is enjoying its 59th week at number 1 on the Hot Christian Singles chart. And I bring that up particularly because Lauren Daigle, You Say, crossed over to the Hot 100 in a really huge way that Christian songs don't usually these days. It hit number 29 on the Hot 100, even hit number 20 on the radio songs chart. And so with that in mind, I look at God Only Knows finally entering the Hot 100 after months and months of promotions and multiple high-profile remixes, and I start to wonder if we're in a period where label executives are starting to see a greater potential for CCM crossover in the wake of Lauren Daigle's sort of smash success with You Say. Remains to be seen. That's my deep dive. Caitlin, what are you thinking about any of these songs, all of these songs? Dolly Parton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick up actually where you left off with the CCM crossover, because I think that's not only true for kind of like country rock pop, but I think it's also true for rap. Like, look at Old Town Road. You know what I mean? Like, that was just put through the ringer of remixes, and it's still like doing super well. People still love it, blah, 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 blah. So I feel like we're seeing this a lot. We may have entered the age of the eternal remix, which is kind of frightening, but...
And I know there's been discussion. I haven't seen anything official, but I know there's been sort of noise that Billboard is looking into changing their rules about remixes counting towards the same chart entry. So we'll see on that front.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Just so I can put my 2 cents in for the Dolly Parton remix, because I know that Tanner may disagree. I love to disagree with Tanner. Dolly Parton sounds super old because she is old. I understand. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm not trying to shoot anybody down. But when I heard that remix for the first time, like, I never knew it was possible to like sound like a wrinkle, like just a wrinkle. She just sounds so old. And sonically, that's interesting. I don't know, my ears picked up on that. And we talk a lot about the difference between, I think, people's voices on this podcast a lot, and what sticks out to us and what doesn't. And, you know, nothing really stuck out to me about the brothers' voices. Nothing really stuck out to me about Echo Smith. But Dolly Parton, you are an earworm. A wrinkly earworm, my friend.
And the rearrangement totally helps. Like, it would probably not go super well if they put Dolly Parton on top of the Timbaland accompaniment.
Oh, could you imagine? I want that.